Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
We sometimes call it Fire Friday, sometimes Party Friday. But this evening, I think Party Friday has the edge because Zimbabwe is a nation celebrating after the Warriors qualified for a third successive appearance at the Africa Cup of Nations, courtesy of victory over the Zebras of Botswana in Francistown yesterday evening. And then following that, Algeria, the Desert Foxes, doing us a favor by holding Zambia to a 3-3 draw in that nation. It means that Zimbabwe qualify with a game to spare. No need for the calculators, no need for us to be discussing permutations heading into the final match day. In fact, we can ring the changes and bring in some of the fringe players, as Logarušić now has more than 8 months to prepare for Zimbabwe's appearance at Cameroon 2021. That is the big story. That is the big celebration. And celebrating with me, Mike Madoda, are Chris Mizi, Barry Manandi, our man on social media, Chitate Tatenda, not Mukuruva, but Tatenda Ziambe. Our producer is Sean Taferenyika. And of course, Alois Bunjira joins us, the former Warrior, the former Caps United and Mamelodi Sundowns striker. He'll be keen to share his insights and thoughts about what transpired yesterday evening in Francistown, but also the things that Zimbabwe needs to do in the following 8 months to make sure we just don't go to make up the numbers, but to compete in Cameroon. Elsewhere, we'll have international sports news for you, and rugby is front and center. Scotland, the Brave Scots, they stand in the way of France and a first Six Nations title in more than a decade.
We'll have more international sports news for you when we take you around the world in 60, starting off in Wellington, where maiden centuries for Devon Conway and all-rounder Daryl Mitchell lifted New Zealand to a 164-run win over Bangladesh in the third one-day international and a 3-0 sweep of the series. We'll head over to Sakir, where Lewis Hamilton says he's never been so excited for a Formula One season as the world champion prepares for his hardest battle, insisting Red Bull go into the Bahrain Grand Prix opener ahead of Mercedes. And in California, the LA Clippers have acquired Rajon Rondo from the Atlanta Hawks in exchange for fellow guard Lou Williams, 2 second-round picks and cash considerations.
We'll take our player of the day. It is Fire Friday, Party Friday. We are celebrating the Warriors qualification. Then we dive into the beautiful game where kickoff is on the continent for Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers, where South Africa will again have to take the hard route when they face Sudan on Sunday, following their 1-1 draw against a second-string Ghana side last night. In European World Cup qualifiers, Spain suffered a frustrating start to their campaign as they were held to a draw by Greece in Granada. And coach Luis Enrique says La Furia Roja need to collect maximum points when they take on Georgia on Sunday. And without any South American World Cup qualifiers, there will be some attention on notable international friendlies. It's Fire Friday. We are celebrating. Black Eyed Peas. Celebrate.
The Warriors, the Chevrons, the Cheetahs, the Mighty Warriors, and the Sables. From the pool to the track to the field, we are Team Zimbabwe.
As the celebrations continue, why don't you be a part of them? Send your message to the Warriors and Logarušić at ZiFM Sport. That's the handle you need to follow and interact with. You can actually do so as well in our individual capacities at Chris Midzi, at Sean Tafirinika, at Gazaman14, at Mike Madoda, and at Barry Manandi. Let's get to that story out of Francistown. The Warriors last night qualifying for next year's Africa Cup of Nations with a game to spare after producing a gritty performance to beat the Zebras in a Group H qualifier at the Obedi Chilume Stadium in Francistown. Perfect Chikwende's solitary goal in the 14th minute on his debut for the Warriors gave Zimbabwe the all-important victory versus Botswana. I was going to say what a game, but that would be, Barry, embellishment. I think what we need to celebrate is the result, because the performance wasn't anything to write home about.
Certainly, we celebrate the result on the night, which is a 1-0 victory, and then celebrate, of course, the net result in the group after Zambia and Algeria did what they did later on in the evening. Yeah, but you're so right. The game against Botswana had nothing to write home about. We got a goal from a set piece, which is good, and that's all you can ask a team to do. Perfect Chikwende, perfect debut for him, debut goal, great. But from there, it was Logarušić, classic Logarušić. It was defensive, it was stoic, it was stodgy, it gave nothing away, and looked a bit like Chan with different personnel on the field of play.
Well, Perfect Chikwende making his debut for the Warriors, who lined up as follows. Talbot Shumba was in goal, and he was joined by Takudzwa Chimwemwe, Teenage Khadebe, Jimmy Dzingai, Onismo Basera, a man that was tipped by Alois Bunjira as to be an option at the left back position. Well, he got a late call, paid his own way from Joburg into Francistown, and pulled on the yellow jumper of Zimbabwe, or last night it was the green jumper of Zimbabwe, to start that match for Logarušić, and acquitted himself very well. Tabani Kamsoko, Ovidi Karuru, Perfect Chikwende, Kudama Hachi, Knowledge Musona captained the side, and he was joined in attack by Terence Zukamanja of Orlando Pirates. Alois, can we forgive Logarušić and the Warriors for that lethargic defensive performance if we consider the result and the fact that we've qualified?
Yeah, Mike, I think we can forgive. I think we can forgive because we were looking for a result, not really to play well. But of course, you need to see your team playing well and collecting a result. But I was happy that at the end we collected those 3 points that made us qualify. But like we said, yes, the action was not appealing. You know, it was not impressive. We were not impressive. We were not impressive on the day. But I was happy that we didn't give anything away. We closed shop and we didn't let Botswana score a goal that they needed badly. So I think at the end of the day, we are happy, yes, with the result, but certainly we need to improve on the performance. Maybe it's because some of our best players were not there. You know, we can do better, and then we'll see as we go forward. We'll see when we play Zambia here in Zimbabwe. It's a match that we still need to win, because sometimes you need to create that culture of winning and solidify your confidence and make sure that you get the points that can also catapult us to to the standings in the CAF. The CAF rankings. We still need those points as well for those CAF rankings. And I was also happy. Onismo Basera came last minute, like I had predicted. I was happy to see him being called up, and he acquitted himself well. He played, so that's it. So I think at the end of the day, we are happy. We qualified, but then we can also still improve on our performance.
So whilst we're not ticking the box on performance immediately, Chris, are you happy with the character, the grit that was exhibited by the Warriors? Because we all agreed that the preparations weren't the best. We talked about that playing surface at Railton, which they were subjected to on the first day of camp. We also talked about their travel arrangements, which many people feel were not the best. Even after ZiFM clarified, I think it was still a very long and arduous journey. And the fact that they were only tested on match day, and then kickoff was delayed as a result of them waiting for the tests and for the confirmation of the results. Did they exhibit the mental fortitude, Chris, that would say that perhaps you would look at and say, okay, you know what, in spite of everything happening off the field of play and around the Warriors, they're still capable of getting a result even when things aren't at their best?
Absolutely. I think hats off to the players, and I think the coaching staff as well for keeping their heads in the game. When it comes to our boys, I think what we almost always end up expecting is that we'll get a performance from them, that they'll be able to do something in a game, not necessarily that we rely particularly on the coaches or for the administrators to make the journey easy for them. And like you just described, it wasn't. There was a lot standing in the way, and there was a lot that we could have talked about today. Had the Warriors lost yesterday, there was a lot we could have pointed to say, how could we have expected them to perform under these conditions? But perform they did. They put on a performance decent enough to get us qualification. Was it great? No. Is it something we can build upon? Absolutely. But can we attribute this to the players just having sheer grit and wanting this win, wanting to get us to AFCON? Absolutely.
Well, it's a performance that sees us head into Cameroon next year for a third successive appearance at the Africa Cup of Nations, and the fans are cock-a-hoop. They are happy. We caught up with some of them and they expressed their delight at that qualification.
I don't know kufara vaenda vakaratidza chido unoziva special nezvakaitika maresults akabuda yaka zvinhu zviri ndinonakidza singeti unoziva kuti kana isusu bhora totoridawo bcause tinobvisa stress yatinayo zvokuti tinotonzwa kutosununguka
aiwa handi kunzwa kufara newakomana wakawina wakomana aiwa wakagona chaiko
ngawamupe nguva kochi tiri kuona ari kuita zvinhu zviri kudi zvikufadza vanhu wamupe nguva akochi ari 1 achiita basa rake ndiye akapinda basa iroro ari 1 kwete kuzonzwa patouchline pamira vamwe vanhu vakuti buritsa nhingi isa nhingi buritsa nhingi isa nhingi aiwa timu iri kutamba zvekutifadza
toda kutoshingirira titotora kana AFCON yacho iyoyo ende kochi watinayo ka garamba ane rainaro ari kuziva zvaari kuita
tiri kufara chaizvo kuti vakomana vakakwanisa kuzviita, although team yange iri depleted but still takazviita, saka go Warriors go.
Of course wakahwina, hatingati wanotamba kudarika Bafana wana tomutari vanakadevere wanani, no, bhora wakaitawo chanzi nyangwe vamwe asipo, asi ngavatsvage munhu anotamba kumatimu mahombe anozikana kuti nyangwe tikazinda mberi tenda mberi. Awa tikawati wakahwina, of course wakahwina, asi hatikwanira tiwa timu yedu because papa sina vamwe Bafana vanotamba vanotogona kudarika iwawa, saka ivo pakuhwina iraki rakawanikwa, but asikati timu yedu yabuildika zvakanaka, apa wakaita zvakanaka, kati chibhidho vamwe Bafana vamwe vasipo, timu yedu yowedzera kusimba, torega kutamba bhora kuti anga asipo hapo, anga asipo hapo, whoever aripo tokote ndiye aripo, because vamwe Bafana vasina kuuya watamba bhora deka vanga varipo, awakangetawo chance okuhwina zvinowanikwa muupenyu.
Barry, the fans understandably delighted and, Zimbabwe coming from the dark ages where we were nearly men, we would nearly qualify, and sometimes qualification was a dream. We find ourselves regulars now at the Africa Cup of Nations. I just want to go back to last night's performance, Barry. Normally we would be talking about the likes of Kama Billiot. Well, he didn't play. We'll be talking about Knowledge Musona, the captain, and his inspirational displays and goals. We've talked about Perfect Chikwende, a perfect debut for him. But how good was Talbot Shumba in goal? Because he's the man that many people see as responsible for us getting over the line eventually.
And he was, let's be fair, because he was immense. And listen, point blank saves. He was like the man that we've been missing. In other words, that confidence boosting individual and body that stands behind the back four. And Talbot Shumba, he hasn't. Let's be fair on him. He hasn't put a foot wrong since he's been given the chance in between the sticks for the Warriors. And I don't see a reason why he should be changed. And yes, I completely agree with those that are saying that Talbot Shumba perhaps is one of the central figures to the getting this result out of Francistown and us qualifying ultimately for the tournament. Yes, there's a lot that's come, a lot of water has passed under the bridge, but Talbot Shumba certainly can put his hand up and be one of those, the luminaries that has stood head and shoulders and put their hand up and performed for the Warriors.
Where does this take the goalkeeping conversation, Alois? Talbot Shumba has put his hand up in the matches that he's been asked to guard goal for the Warriors. And we are taking a look at the goalkeeping options that Logarušić has. What decision is taken by the technical team as far as the goalkeeper's position is concerned? Does he look to the generation past, your Chipezezes, your Chigovas? Does he go with experience, or does he stick with the man who's showing form, the man who's not let him down when he's trusted him with the gloves? Or does he go with Mapisa, who many people want to see given a chance in goal for Zimbabwe?
Mike, this is a tricky one for me, but I'll go with Talbot Shumba for now. and Mapisa as his understudy, I think I would go with consistency with those two. Maybe probably with another goalkeeper, an upcoming goalkeeper, maybe a younger goalkeeper, probably maybe Chachenda Mkuru or something, so that we can actually have continuity. I think that the older generation, I think they've played their part. We talked about it before, that the turnover for our goalkeepers is just too high. We don't need that. We need consistency in that department. So you can actually look at Talbot Shumba. He is a very good goalkeeper. He is imposing. I like his size as well. He is imposing. He is intimidate. And he has got a safe pair of hands. I'd rather give him a chance, try him and keep Mapisa as an understudy, and they go together like that. I think we can actually have a very good, a long period with those two in goals for Zimbabwe. They can alternate. If the other one is not available, the other one can take. But I can give the nod to Talbot Shumba for now.
I would agree with that, Mike. I just want to add on to that, because Talbot Shumba as well has demonstrated that he's a fantastic organizer. The man talks from minute 1 right through to minute 90 until it comes to an end. And if you listen to any goalkeeper's coach, he'll tell you that a good goalkeeper is almost a commentator on the field. He is a coach on the field, because he tells the players right from his defense right through to the strikers exactly what they ought to be doing at any particular time, especially in grounds now where there are no fans. They can all hear him. He's got that booming voice. So I reckon we stick with him.
I want to stay with you, Barry, because the man who's trusted Talbot Shumba is the coach, Zdravko Logarušić, and he's a guy who the jury is still out as to how effective he is, how good he is as a coach. But let's just stick to the facts. He's qualified with the Zimbabwe. He becomes the first foreign coach to do that. The only other time that Zimbabwe has made it to the Africa Cup of Nations is under local coaches. Sande Mofu-Chidzambwa in 2004, Charles Mhlauri in 2006, and then we had to wait 11 years until 2017, Gabon, for Callisto Pasua to take us there. So he's the first foreign coach to get the job done. Are you confident going forward that if he's given more time, because we've talked about having 8 months to prepare the team. He doesn't have many excuses now. Local football is returning soon. Our local players are going to be playing and available. Our international stars are playing. Okay? So he's not going to have many excuses. Can you trust him to be the man who will take Zimbabwe to Cameroon, and for Zimbabwe not just to go there and make up the numbers, but for Zimbabwe to compete? Because we've been to these Africa Cup of Nations before, and sadly, we've just made up the numbers.
Can I trust him? I would say that I think we now know what to expect from Logarušić. We've got enough of a body of work as to what to expect. And what we can expect is that we're not going to see attacking football. We're not going to see us dominating possession and bombarding the opposition. We're going to see performances that are based on a strong defense and trying to pick something off on the counter. Is that what we want to see? No. Is that going to give us a podium performance? I doubt it. So we just go there hopeful, but listen, I don't think certainly I'm not expectant.
Chris, the criticism that Logarušić doesn't play flair, or should I say swashbuckling, attacking football, he doesn't get at teams, is that fair? Or is it just Logarušić really being realistic about who we are as a footballing nation? I know Zimbabweans, we tend to see ourselves right up there with Senegal, with Algeria, with Egypt. And is this just Logarušić saying, guys, listen, for us to get the job done, we need to almost employ the Mourinho approach, where you are going to have to be defensive, disciplined, and then get the result. Are we being fair, or is it just Zimbabweans sometimes being unfair because we tend to see ourselves as one of the best footballing nations in Africa when we are not in reality?
Yes, in reality, we're no longer that nation. In reality, we're no longer...
When we ever, Chris?
We're certainly not where we are, and that was several steps up from where we are now. So I think there's that aspect of Logarušić being very realistic in terms of his approach, playing it a little bit safe, and in as much as that will work for this point, to say, you know what, we've sealed qualification, which is the job that we needed to do. I don't think that going into a tournament like AFCON, that approach is what is going to get us further into the tournament than we have previously. I don't think that's the approach that's going to win us a lot of games, because we're going to come against teams that, first of all, might employ the same approach, but at the same time, when you have teams that come at you, sometimes just taking a look at our defense, we might not be able to hold them out. So for me, in as much as this tactic works now for Logarušić with the material and the conditions that he's got, going into the actual AFCON, I don't think this is going to get us very far.
Mike, I have to come back and defend my point, because I truly believe that Logarušić has got the resources to play attacking football. And in this generation, we look at it and we've got the likes of your Marshall Munetsis, who's a sitter but can also pick a pass. Marvelous Nakamba sitting next to him. We go further up the pitch. We've got Ovidi Karuru, who on his day is fantastic. Kudama Hachi, you talk about Kama Billiard, Knowledge Musona. If we add in there your Knox Mtiza, Terence Zukamanjas, and players of that ilk, we've got attacking options to trouble the best on the continent. We're not necessarily, we don't have riches of defensive talent. Let's be fair. We got Talbot Shumba, yes, and we got T.H. Hadebe and possibly Alec Mudimu. But in truth, if we are going forward, that's where our strength lies. So I don't think we're utilizing that with a defense-minded coach like Logarušić, and that's okay. You can be defense-minded, but that's just how he is.
Well, I'm going to come back to the defense, but I want to pose the same question to Alois, because you've just made a very impassioned argument and defense of your point, which leads me to ask the same question. Can we trust this man with the Warriors at AFCON? You've pointed out the fact that if you take a look at Southern Africa, we've actually got the highest profile players, Bafana Bafana included. We got Marvelous Nakamba, who's playing for Aston Villa, Kadewere playing for Lyon.
Yes.
We got Marshall Munetsi, who's outstanding in Ligue 1. We got Teenage Hadebe, who's playing in Turkey. So we have got the riches, we've got the talent. You talk about defense, Barry, but I tell you, is it the defenders that you are seeing in the current squad? Or are you also considering the likes of Kevin Moyo, who we saw get given a run out in Warriors colors and was outstanding, man of the match versus the Democratic Republic of Congo, but has never been called back to the national team. So I believe that we've got the talent there defensively. Peter Mudua, why isn't he involved in the national team, at least as a squad player? No one can answer those questions. So I believe we've got the talent. I will ask Alois Munjira again. Can this man make it work, Alois, when we go to AFCON, so that we are not just saying we are here to take part in the group stages, but we are here to get to the quarters, to get to the semis, to challenge?
Yeah, Mike, very good, very interesting question, Mike. It's actually a worrying factor that, you know what, we are playing defensive football when we have the talent to actually go and murder teams. You know, we have got the talent, like you have just said, that, you know what, we actually have the best. If we player by player, we've got the best squad in Southern Africa. Why don't we just go out there and attack and beat teams? We have got enough defenders that are capable of defending. We have got them. So we don't need to actually crowd our defense and do counter-attacking football. No, we have got nippy players. Even if you look at Algeria, when we played against Algeria, when we started playing, we started showing that we can actually match Algeria pound for pound. If we are starting to play, if Marvel started clicking, Kama Billiard started clicking, we've got Knowledge, we've got Tino Kadewere, we've got Marshall Munetsi, we can play. So let's find a formula. I hope if he finds a formula, if he decides that we must go and play at the AFCON, I'm sure that we can. But if we go to the AFCON and start defending like we are usually doing now, we might not proceed to the next round. But like we said, right now, it's time for us to proceed beyond the first round. We have been there 4 times. This is the 5th time. We cannot be learning anymore. We have to go there and deliver. We need the second round finish at least.
Yeah, the talent certainly in there. If you consider Knox Mutizwa, not even involved. Prince Dube, not even involved. We got plenty of talent, but the logarithm that Logarušić is gonna have to solve is
brilliant.
How does he put it together in 11 players? How does he come up with a team with a working formula for the Warriors to actually succeed in Cameroon? Chris, organization is key in Africa. The teams that invariably do well, the ones that go and perform at tournaments, are the ones that prepare well. are the ones that are given the resources to actually do that. That's the challenge that's before ZiFA, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we see it over and over again. The nations that make the investments, the nations that have proper structures, the nations that are willing to work as professionally as possible. That's what we see. And it's no surprise that you've got your nations like Comoros who then qualify off the back of things like that. So I think our organization locally definitely needs to take a look inward and make sure that they've got everything in place for us to perform as best as we can when we go to AFCON.
Barry, give me some low-hanging fruit for you right now. What are the quick wins that ZiFA can immediately start working on?
Well, Mike, the first thing I think is we need to cover the financial aspect, make sure we've got enough money to cater for our journey out into Cameroon. Of course, CAF is going to provide, but we ourselves need to have our own funding and make sure that we sort out contractual issues with players and all of that. That's off the field of play. On the field of play, we need to support Logarušić in the next 8 months or so and his technical team so that we're able to assess our players, travel to various bases as well as get the data, get the analytics of our players as they perform in those various leagues. Every single one of them is a professional at that level. So we need a team that is going to be able to assess and analyze the data so that we're able to use our players at their optimum. Those two need to be the first things that we cover, Mike.
Certainly, Barry, ZiFA with a lot of work to do, but the good thing is that they've got a lot of time in which to do it. Zimbabwe qualified for Cameroon 2021 in second place right now in Group H, but it's all mathematical. It doesn't matter because Botswana and Zambia have 4 points, meaning that they can't catch the Warriors no matter the outcome of the two matches that will be played this weekend. Zimbabwe hosting Zambia, whilst Algeria, of course, will be playing versus Botswana. What a great night it was for Zimbabwe football last night. A perfect one, you could say. This is ZiFM Sport. Coming up, we give you a local sports news roundup, and then we have a bit of rugby before we return to more football as we take a look at the CAF AFCON qualifiers as well as the start of World Cup qualification in Europe.
Hi, I'm Various coach Logarušić, and you are listening to ZiFM Sport.
Sports with a difference.
Let's start with athletics, where athletes are geared up for the National Athletics Association of Zimbabwe first event of the year, the National Open Championships, which will be held at White City Stadium in Bulawayo tomorrow. In line with COVID-19 standard operating procedure, each province is only allowed to field 2 athletes per event. For track events, competitors will battle it out in the 100 meters, 200 meters, 400, 1,500, 5,000 and 10,000 meter disciplines, while field events on offer are long jump as well as javelin. And did you know Mike Madoda was quite a dab at javelin? On to swimming news, where a competition will return to the pool this weekend at Les Brown Pool in Harare for the 6th Seed Gala, which will be held by the Harare Amateur Swimming Board. The meet will be held under strict COVID-19 regulations, with not more than 50 people per session allowed to take part. The board public relations officer Shingirai Mtetwa said everything is in place for the hosting of the championships. To wrap it up with motorsport news, the ceremonial home of local motorsport, yes, you guessed it, Donnybrook Park Raceway will hold the first main circuit national race day of the year on Sunday. One of the event's organizers, Jim Perry, who could not hide his excitement over the resumption of racing, said, "We're all very excited to race, as last year we only managed one national race and then COVID-19 regulations stopped play. We will have a number of categories on Sunday with the bikes. Many of the youngsters have now moved up to the 600cc class, and we're expecting over a dozen bikes on the line."
Hi, this is Mike Madoda, and you can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station, my station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
Z. From the front of the grid to the back of the net, it's ZiFM Sport. International Sports News Roundup, where the world comes out to play.
As Mike said, we're diving into rugby now. The Hurricanes. This is, of course, Super Rugby Aotearoa, where the Hurricanes have broken their Super Rugby Aotearoa 2021 duck with an impressive 30-19 win over the Highlanders. In a fixture where Aaron Smith celebrated his 154th cap for the Highlanders, overtaking Ben Smith, the 80 minutes belonged to Hurricanes fullback Jordie Barrett. The 24-year-old was absolutely amazing, scoring a hat-trick of tries and adding an additional 15 points with his boot for a 30-point haul. And that's the way, Mike, to break your duck for the Hurricanes. The Canes finally coming to the party.
Yeah, absolutely. And one man at the center of it all, and that's Jordie Barrett. He scored all the points, all 30 points coming from him. Fantastic. If you play fantasy Super Rugby, he's the man. If you had him in your team, you'd have got a bucket load of points. So the Hurricanes absolutely impressive. But they were impressive in the defensive aspects of the game, because there were several times that the Highlanders had them under the pump, but they were able to literally get the ball on their own line. They were winning penalties after penalties. You know, they've got really good fetchers. Adi Surveyor, the best in the world at doing that. And they dodged the bullet about 3 or 4 times when the Highlanders were within 2 or 3 meters of the try line. So I think we must praise them for their resilience, praise them for their defensive tenacity, and also their ruthlessness. Whenever they went into the opposition 22, they cashed in and they scored a try. So the Highlanders would have been left thinking, you know what? How did we lose this one? We played well, but we still lost.
And Chris, I want to dive into what Mike is talking about, and a slight segue in the sense that they say that Super Rugby Aotearoa almost has the intensity of it has a test match intensity, and you think to yourself, the test that it does on you on both aspects of the game, your attack and your defense, is massive, and it's going to bode well for the All Blacks going forward, surely.
It's definitely going to bode well for the All Blacks going forward. And what we see consistently is that all of these franchise sides, what they do is they play that same style of rugby. It's the same intensity they would play when it comes to a test match as well. So it bodes well for the quality itself, bodes well for the All Blacks, and definitely bodes well for the players.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that, Barry, that when you take a look at the way that Super Rugby Aotearoa has gone on, I mean, and then you compare it to Super Rugby AU and what we're seeing out of South Africa, there are at least 2 levels in terms of intensity that the other nations, Australia and South Africa, need to go through to get to where New Zealand is operating. And so when we get to the international season, New Zealand is going to have a lot of options to pick from. It's going to have a lot of players who are in form and operating at that test match intensity that you're talking about.
Absolutely, and that's what Super Rugby Aotearoa is giving the All Blacks first and foremost, and then also giving the players who are performing within it. Tomorrow's match is the Chiefs taking on the Blues. Mike talked about Super Rugby AU. Well, there was a match this morning. Len Ikitau and Andy Moorhead scored 2 tries apiece to guide the Brumbies to a 42-14 bonus point victory over the Western Force. Tomorrow's Super Rugby AU match, it's the Waratahs taking on the Reds. It's decision time in Six Nations rugby, and Scotland stand between France and a first Six Nations title in more than a decade as the 2 teams clash in the final game of the tournament in Paris tonight. Michael, this one is critical. This one is key. France has given themselves a chance. When you put yourself into this position by beating Wales last weekend, you've got to then see it out.
Well, if they beat Scotland by more than 21 points, they deserve it. It's going to be tough. This is not the Scotland of 4 or 5 years ago. This is a Scotland side that's defeated England. This is a Scotland side that put 50 points past Italy last weekend. So if they manage to do it very well, fair play to them. They certainly deserve to be champions.
As you heard, 21 points is their magic number, as it were. Can they do it? It's on tonight. Six Nations, decision time.
Hi, I'm JC Krill, Springbok and Blue Bulls backline player. You are listening to ZiFM Sports.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
We take off in Wellington, where maiden centuries for Devon Conway and all-rounder Daryl Mitchell lifted New Zealand to a 164-run win over Bangladesh in the third one-day international and a 3-0 sweep of the series. South African-born Conway made 126 and shared a record 159-run partnership with Mitchell as New Zealand made 318 for 6, batting after winning the toss. Matt Henry then crashed through the Bangladesh top order, taking 3 for 13 as the visitors were all out for 154 in the 43rd over. We'll head over to Sakir, where Lewis Hamilton says he's never been so excited for a Formula One season as the world champion prepares for his hardest battle, insisting Red Bull go into the Bahrain Grand Prix opener ahead of Mercedes. 3 months after Mercedes and Hamilton wrapped up their historic 7th title-winning 2020 campaign, there is plenty of intrigue and anticipating about the front of the grid for the first Grand Prix of 2021, with Red Bull, perennial slow started since their last championship, seen as genuine contenders after a very impressive pre-season testing. And we'll touch down in California, where the LA Clippers have acquired Rajon Rondo from the Atlanta Hawks in exchange for fellow guard Lou Williams, 2 second-round picks and cash considerations. A 4-time All-Star and 2-time NBA champion, Rondo was a first-round draft pick for the Phoenix Suns before he was traded to the Boston Celtics in 2006. Aside from spending 9 years with the Celtics, he has also played for the Dallas Mavericks, Sacramento Kings, Chicago Bulls, New Orleans Pelicans, LA Lakers, and Hawks. Traveler.
Hi, my name is Rune Shamba, Mytoria's super striker. You're listening to ZiFM Sports.
The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. The beating drum. The roaring fans. Take a ride on the wild side with the Africa Report on ZiFM Sport.
Well, as we said at the top of the show, we're at the business end of AFCON qualification. Let's run through the teams that have qualified for AFCON. Cameroon already. Group A, Mali and Guinea. In Group D, Gabon and Gambia are through. Morocco is through out of Group E. Group F, Cameroon is through. In Group H, of course, it's Algeria and Zimbabwe. In Group G, Egypt and the Comores, while Senegal has qualified already out of Group I. In Group J, Tunisia and Equatorial Guinea have qualified. Now, here's the thing about our neighbors, South Africa. They will again have to take the hard route in the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers when they face Sudan on Sunday, following a 1-1 draw against a second-string Ghana side last night. A wasteful and at times inexplicably lethargic Bafana Bafana conceded first in the 49th minute when Mohamed Kudus, a player that Mike likes a lot, found a way through Bronwyn Williams. But the host responded 3 minutes later through Percy Tau doing the business. Michael, let's go to Alois. Alois loves Bafana. Alois, what's going on with your second team?
Yeah, man, it's a pity. You know, they are not at their best, and I think that, you know, they are in a phase where I am worried about Zimbabwe, that after this golden generation, we are going to get into this phase that South Africa are in. They are ahead of us. They are in that phase at the moment. The golden generation went by.
Yeah.
They had the 1996 team, then they had that Benny McCarthy team that came through. It started dropping, you know, they started dropping. And they are in this dry period where, like, you remember Mike was actually talking about it, that, you know what, in terms of player by player, we actually have the players with better profile than South Africa at the moment. You know, it was never like that at the beginning, since they rejoined CAF and FIFA. So they are in that phase. You know, there's nothing much to talk about. If it's not Pesitao, there's no one else to talk about, and there's no consistent. But you remember, when you don't know a first 11 of a particular team, of a particular nation, you know that that nation is in trouble, is in disarray. We knew the Nigerian national team,
they've got an
generation, you could set it up here in Harare, you could set a Nigerian team. Right now. But when you look at Bafana
that's true.
You know who to play left back, right back. You don't even know who the goalkeeper is. So that's the phase that they are in right now.
That's true, Alois, and they are struggling, but in truth, if the qualifiers ended today, Bafana would qualify because in Group C, Ghana is out in front on 10 points. Bafana is in second on 10 points, but they absolutely require a positive result against Sudan. Sudan, who is in third on 9 points, just 1 point behind South Africa. So if they beat South Africa, Sudan will qualify and South Africa will miss out. Sao Tome and Principe, they haven't scored at all. They've been the whipping boys of this group. Michael, just looking down the page and wondering which one leaps off the page for you in terms of AFCON qualifiers. Which group to you, would you say is still very tastefully and interestingly poised?
Well, Group B, Barry, is very interesting because you've got three nations in the hunt. Burkina Faso are leading the way. They have 9 points. Uganda have got 8 points. And then Malawi have got 7 points. And depending on the outcome of the matches, Barry, in that group, if you take a look at Burkina Faso, they're going to be playing South Sudan. So you would fancy their chances because South Sudan have been eliminated. They've got nothing to play for. And they're bottom of that group. So Burkina Faso hold all the aces, as it were. They are also playing at home. And then there is the do or die encounter that will be played in Blantyre or Lilongwe. That's between Malawi and Uganda. These are the nations that are occupying second and third place. The one that wins assures themselves of qualification. Uganda have got the extra joker in that they know that a draw can see them through. Malawi need the win to qualify ahead of Uganda. So there is still plenty to play for. And should South Sudan pull a shocker, it could make things very interesting in that group.
Yes, indeed, Mike. I'm not going to argue with you. Group B looks very delicately poised. Burkina Faso, Uganda, and Malawi, all with a realistic opportunity of being there in the final shake-up. Whoever misses out, it's going to be heartbreaking. Whenever I think about Burkina Faso, I think about Jonathan Petroipa. What a player. I used to enjoy the way that he plays. I haven't seen him play at the level that I saw him play a few years ago in many, many years. Burkina Faso hoping that they will be at AFCON come Cameroon.
The league that makes football oh so beautiful, where artistry and strokes of genius are the order of any day, where the game is played with a smile and the little master creates his magic. All the news from the Spanish La Liga on ZiFM Sport.
European qualifiers also on at the moment. Key results from Wednesday and Thursday night. Belgium 3-1 against Wales. France and Ukraine drew 1-1. Germany 3-0 against Iceland. Bulgaria slumping to Switzerland 3-1. Hungary and Poland coming to a 3-3 draw. Some more interesting results. Spain, they suffered a frustrating start to their 2022 World Cup qualifying campaign, and they came to a 1-1 draw by Greece in Grenada. Also, the Netherlands slumping to a surprise 4-2 defeat to Turkey. Mike, these are some interesting results, and it looks like the big nations aren't performing as we would usually see them do.
You know what, Chris? I would want someone to do a study on the impact of playing in stadiums without fans. Because I'm just taking a look at the trend that we've seen in European football in the major leagues, how Juventus has struggled, how Bayern Munich, despite their good performances occasionally, they've also struggled. They haven't been at the usual high best. Take a look at Liverpool as well, the defending champions, their struggles in England. You go to Spain, Real Madrid is struggling. And so many teams are struggling. And now you take a look at these qualifiers as well. It looks like playing in empty stadiums narrows the gap of performance between teams. So in terms of maybe the smaller nations being intimidated, there are no fans there, there's no atmosphere, so they treat it like a practice match. And I think, you know, I would love a study to be done, you know, and I'm not saying I'm speaking factually because I don't know the science behind this and of the impact, but I'd just love someone to just do a study on it to see what the overall impact has been, because I think this is part of it, where we are seeing Ukraine holding France, for example, Greece going to Spain and being on the verge of victory, and results like that, which are
No actual evidence or studies that we have as yet, but there definitely is a difference in some of these qualifying campaigns. Gareth Southgate, though, he was pleased with his hungry-looking England side in the 5-0 win over San Marino, claiming in the past players had looked stodgy in such fixtures. Your key weekend qualifiers: Serbia will be up against Portugal, the Netherlands will be taking on Latvia, Romania versus Germany, and Kazakhstan versus France. Alois, for teams like France and the Netherlands, is it early days, or should they be looking at bouncing back in this next round of qualifiers?
They should definitely bounce back, Chris, because this is the France we are talking about. They need to maintain that winning mentality. When they play against a smaller nation, they need to show their pedigree. They need to show their mantle. So they need to bounce back, and they should be whipping these boys. I'm also worried about Gareth Southgate praising his team against San Marino. These are the teams that they used to beat 15-0, 10-0, 14-0. He should be worried that they are not doing that. And I'm also worried about the big teams. So, and I'm worried about the game. Probably it's because of what Mike said about the fans. The impact of no fans in the stadium. That's why the smaller teams are actually putting up a big fight against the bigger nations.
Well, that's all we have time for. There's some international friendlies as well over the weekend. If you want a humdinger of a fixture, Bosnia-Herzegovina versus Costa Rica, that's the one to watch. You'll watch some swashbuckling football. I'm joking. International friendlies are plenty. You'll be able to watch them on a screen near you. Have a fantastic weekend. Zimbabwe, this has been ZiFM Sport. Zimbabwe is through to AFCON. That's the most important outtake for now. May God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Manande, out.